All right, it's official. We're launching. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our Indiana Youth Worker Wellbeing Project Grant Opportunity Kickoff today. So we are super excited to see so many faces. I love seeing everybody pop up, familiar faces, new faces, all of it. My name is Becky Reich. I am one of the directors of quality for the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project. I use she, her pronouns, or anything used with respect is fine as well. So let's start with logistics for today. So as you can see, you probably just got that little notice. We are recording this session today. So you will have it. So no need to stress about getting those notes down or worrying if you have to pop off before we're done. Will be recorded and available for future access. Format wise today, I'm going to walk you through the RFA that will be released tomorrow. Try to give you just kind of a little walkthrough, insight information on that piece. We'll go through that. We have the question and answer functionality enabled today to capture your questions. So please use that so those don't get lost in the chat. But also please use the chat and give us feedback and thoughts and encouragement. Reaction buttons welcome as well. Always engagement, always welcomed. Also, attendees will receive follow-up email early next week that will include a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, the recording link, and of course, a link to send you to the grants website page where you can access the application and the RFA. So let's start first with what is the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project? So the project is a comprehensive, collaborative, statewide effort to look at improving the lives of Indiana youth workers. We know that our youth workers spend their days pouring into our young people every day, and this is an effort to pour back into them and make sure that their workplaces, their environments are safe and encouraging, and their well-being is focused on and centered as well. The project is, as I said, a collaboration. There are 5 intermediary partners that were at the table originally to craft the proposal that went to Lilly Endowment. That proposal was, of course, funded, or we wouldn't be here. And IYI was selected to be the recipient of that funding and to implement the work and to hire the team that would take care of that. However, leadership from all 5 of the intermediaries do serve on a managing committee that helps support and guide the vision of this project as well. So why we're here today. So trauma-informed workplace grants, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging grants. So we want to start first with centering the vision of these grants. And the vision really is to fund diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging and trauma-informed efforts that increase youth worker well-being, that cultivate a workplace environment that decreases stress, that increases belonging, and one that provides opportunities for youth workers to just engage fully and authentically as themselves at work. So why this? What's the background? Where did this come from? Right, let's start there. So why support diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? Because this is what we heard was needed, right? There was a lot of stakeholder interviews and surveys and talking with youth workers and organizations as part of the proposal process. And Indiana youth workers of color specifically shared with us that there are many times they may feel slighted, ignored, or even are victims of bias or microaggressions in the workplace from either coworkers or supervisors or clients that they're serving. We also heard that initial DEIB efforts did not turn into substantive change. From organizations, we heard that maybe they want to move forward, but don't know how to proceed. We heard they weren't sure if they wanted to move forward, who might guide them and support them in that work. And that some may not have the funding to engage in formal equity work or consulting. We also want to acknowledge that youth agencies are all at different points in the spectrum of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work. Some have made progress, some are considering options, and others have yet to begin. So background on trauma-informed. So why trauma-informed workplaces? I know there's the saying that, be the adult that I needed when I was a young person, right? And so we have a lot of youth workers who may experience vicarious trauma in the workplace. So we know that primary and secondary trauma are negatively impacting and affecting the well-being of youth workers. We know that often we focus on trauma-informed services for clients, but may not be making sure that workplaces are trauma-informed as well. A vicarious trauma-informed organization recognizes these challenges and proactively addresses the impact of that vicarious trauma through policies, procedures, practices, and programs. So that's what we're looking to do here. In addition, with that, we want to add a diversity lens. So we already talked about what youth workers might be experiencing in the workplace. And so we encourage, along with this, to encourage the constituencies within staff to ensure that solutions are inclusive of all diverse staff needs. For example, that might include considering the traumatic effect that racist incidents, microaggressions, etc., have on youth workers of color, and develop interventions that are inclusive of that trauma as well. I know this is a burning question, so we're just going to hit it right out the gate. Who's eligible? So we're going to get into that. So to be eligible for grant funding from the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project, here's the criteria. So first, must be an established youth serving organization that currently provides programs directly for youth. And in our definition, youth is ages 5 through 18 in Indiana. Must be a public charity described as it's described in IRS code. I won't read you the rest of those details. That will be in front of you and in the RFA, but public charity described in IRS code. Must offer programs that solely serve youth ages 5 to 18, or if you do offer other programming in other age groups, you must be able to demonstrate that at least 75% of your services are youth and family related. Additionally, we will accept collective applications for organizations through alliances or associations. That is acceptable. And we do want to clarify that the following organizations would be ineligible, even though they do meet many of the requirements on the slide before. K-12 schools, school foundations, higher ed institutions, youth sport leagues, and government agencies. We are really looking at community-based youth serving nonprofit organizations. So funding amounts. Youth agencies may apply one time per year, so that's per calendar year, for either or both of the funding pots. So up to $20,000 for the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging grants, and or up to $10,000 for trauma-informed workplaces within organizations. So again, I want to reiterate, you can apply for one or you can apply for both, and you can do that once per year. This is year one, and there will be 2 more years following. So this is at least a 3-year opportunity to engage in this work or to apply. Okay, so let's talk about preparing to apply, and that's really the point of this today. Is let's get you ready. Let's get applications there. There is going to be plenty of opportunities for youth agencies, so I don't want folks to see this as a competitive process in that way. We will be awarding 75 to 100 grants this year in those buckets each. So encourage folks to apply, and this is what you're going to want to think about as you get ready to do that. So you're going to want to identify potential gaps and needs in outlined categories. And we're going to talk about those categories coming up. You want to determine growth opportunities for your organization. You may need to identify a consultant or trainer or resource to help you reach your goals in those categories. And then you're going to apply for funding to reach those as a next step towards improvement. After you decide which grant, so DEIB or trauma-informed, is needed, organizations will want to demonstrate a plan to grow in at least one of the following categories. I'm going to take a minute with this. And I know that this is a lot of information on the screen. Again, you will receive this PowerPoint deck and you will have additional details in the RFA. So the 4 categories that we are looking to see movement in that you will be selecting when you apply, and you may select one of those categories, you may select 2, multiple, it's up to your needs, is what you see on the left side there in red. So categories: assessment, agency strategy and policy, workplace program, and organizational knowledge. So let's talk first about assessment. So assessment would be something like organizational assessment, or even individual assessment that rolls up into giving organizational data that supports organizational growth in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or trauma-informed workplace practices. Agency strategy and policy is where you might look to revise or create, develop a strategy or plan that looks to impact or create a clear direction with the connection between resources, activities, goals to meet the DEIB or trauma-informed outcomes. And then policy would be creating policies or practices that positively impact organizational culture, increase youth worker safety and belonging, and opportunities at work. This is not necessarily a strategic plan. It could be a strategic plan that heavily looks at DEIB and incorporating that, or that looks at trauma-informed workplace. But this is specifically planning and strategy around workplace efforts around each of these 2 initiatives. Workplace program would be your more programmatic efforts and practices. So that could be revising, creating, developing programs and well-being efforts, or a creation or revision of internal practices that foster safe and equitable workplace environments. Organizational knowledge is where we're looking to grow knowledge, mindset, shift of culture within the workplace. So that could be training, consulting, coaching services that support organizational growth, again, in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or trauma-informed workplace practices. I want to note this is not knowledge focused on the skill development for your frontline youth workers to serve youth. This is organizational knowledge that changes organizational and workplace culture. So let's take a minute and look at the outcomes that agencies will be looking to meet with these funds. So first, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. First and foremost, agency leaders will indicate they feel more equipped to improve their workplace culture, specifically for historically marginalized or minoritized groups. Youth serving professionals agree that their agency's efforts are improving their experiences. That might be fewer microaggressions or something like better opportunities for advancement. Youth serving professionals are recognized and valued for their unique identities, abilities, backgrounds, cultures, and ideas. And youth serving professionals increase their feelings of belonging at work. Outcomes for trauma-informed workplaces. Agency leaders indicate that they are more equipped to lead a trauma-informed workplace. Agency leaders indicate they have implemented one or more trauma-informed strategies. Youth serving professionals indicate positive changes in workplace culture. That looks like increased safety, trustworthiness, and transparency, peer support, collaboration, empowerment, and belonging. And youth serving professionals indicate they can better manage stress or vicarious trauma because of the trauma-informed program. So I mentioned earlier on that one of the organizational barriers was potentially knowing where to start or who can help me with this. So in an effort to support that barrier or relieve that barrier for some, IYI has curated a list of what we're calling grant resources. This includes consultants, trainers, downloadable tools and resources that will support you in fulfilling the organizational goals related to DEIB or trauma-informed workplaces. Upon applying, potential grantees may select an identified grant resource from that list, again, a consultant, trainer, resource to support you in completing your goals outlined in the application. So to be clear, we will ask who you're partnering with. You may find that partner or that support resource from our list, or you may choose someone that you have a relationship with already. To find those resources, you're going to go to youthworkerwellbeing.org. That's going to be your go-to for all things youth worker wellbeing. But for this specifically, you're going to find under grant opportunities, there'll be a tab for grant resources. Those resources will be separated into diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and trauma informed. That way you can look per grant that you are applying for. And they will be split by consultants or trainers, trainings, which might be more content-based training, and then resources. That resource list will be published online and available next Wednesday, March 6th. All right, let's get into application. We tried to keep this as simple as possible for you all, but what we really are trying to gather is, where have you been? Where are you with the work, and where would you like to go? So the narrative is going to start by asking you to describe past or current work related to trauma-informed workplaces or diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, including when that work started. We're going to ask you to describe your organization's current challenges or needs related to trauma-informed workplaces or DEIB. And again, you'll be selecting the category or categories that will be addressed in that work. You're going to provide a description of activities and alignment with the grant outcomes that you just saw, and include a clear timeline for proposed activities. In addition, you're going to tell us who's going to lead this work. Tell us about your staff or board members that are leading this work for you. You're going to talk about the impact that these proposed activities have on the youth workers within your organization. Again, back to the vision of focusing on the youth worker and their workplace. You're going to provide a description of your proposed budget and list any potential project resources, partners, or tools. Required uploads, of course, project budget, and there is a template you can use for that. And then your IRS letter. Optional upload includes any materials that might tell more about your story. I said we want to know where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. So if you have materials that can demonstrate your strategy or commitment or plans that you already have related specifically to this work, we don't need to see your full 5-year strategic plan or all of those things. But if you have any materials that demonstrate where you kind of already are, that give us a picture of that, those are welcomed as well. Logistics for application, again, will be online, youthworkerwellbeing.org under grant opportunities. That will go live tomorrow. So you can rest today and hop on tomorrow. It will be live tomorrow, along with the official RFA that I mentioned earlier. You can save and return while doing the application. However, I will say, as always, best practice, put your narratives in a Word document and save that anyway. But you are able to save and return during the application process. Other reminders, again, you may apply for both. This will be done separately with separate applications. And again, focus on the impact of your youth workers. And those resources are available at youthworkerwellbeing.org under grant resources next week on the 6th. And technical assistance will be available, and I will talk more about that in a minute. So deadlines, important dates to know. Tomorrow's the day. Grants open tomorrow, March 1st, with the application window closing April 15th. So you have about 45 days to get that in. Initial award notifications by May 15th, with funding to be distributed by June 30th. And then grant implementation to start as soon as July 1st. And you have 1 year, so to June 30th, to expend those funds. All right. So of course, let's talk evaluation. So why evaluation? Well, first and foremost, we want to know and we want to assess, did youth agencies meet the outcomes that we outlined for you, that we're trying to meet with this work? That's the guarantee one, right? But also we want to get organizational data to look at future iterations of grant opportunities, right? And to inform us in this project ongoing. Also, we want to be able to collect promising practices that we can share with youth agencies, that worked. What's working out there, and let's share it, right? As we continue to lean into DEIB and trauma-informed workplace efforts. So, as part of evaluation and as a condition of the award, you must agree to, number one, make records available to the evaluation contractor on employees and funding. Must participate in evaluation activities, such as surveys, interviews, and follow evaluation procedures as specified by the evaluation contractor, which may include dissemination of surveys or interview registration links to the employees of grantees. Evaluation may include implementation assessment across grantees and an impact or outcomes analysis of selected organizations. We may require you to collect data elements to aid this evaluation. And then additionally, to ensure project resource quality. If you used a partner, we're going to ask about that partner. And so we might ask grantees then to evaluate the skills, experience, and overall quality of work and satisfaction from consultants and trainers. So we want to take a minute and just touch base because, again, we acknowledge that everybody's in a different place as it relates to knowing where to start with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging work, or navigating the difference between trauma-informed practices versus trauma-informed workplaces. So we want to just have a quick high-level touch point around that. And I want to start with recentering the vision because I think that that's really what's crucial for this funding. Again, the vision is to fund efforts that increase youth worker well-being, cultivate workplace environments that decrease stress or acknowledge vicarious trauma, that increase belonging, and that provide opportunities for youth workers to engage as their authentic selves. So trauma-informed workplaces, again, we acknowledge that many of you maybe use or know or are aware of trauma-informed practices and use that to guide your work or for youth workers to guide their work with the kids they're working with. But what does that look like in a workplace? So this is what it looks and feels like in a workplace. It looks and feels like safety. Staff feel physically and psychologically safe. It feels like trustworthiness and transparency. So operational decisions are made with a goal of building and maintaining trust among staff. It's peer support. Individuals with lived experience of either toxic stress or trauma respect and honor each other's experiences. It's collaboration, appreciating strengths and contributions rather than a hierarchical seniority use of power. It's empowerment. So strengths and experiences are recognized and nurtured. Employees have a voice and are encouraged to constructively address their issues. And it feels like belonging. Organization moves past race and gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, etc., and those stereotypes by developing policies and practices that are based in equity. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace. Again, many folks might be familiar with some concepts of this, but what does that feel like in the workplace when we talk about shifting culture? And I acknowledge that I could have went on for slide after slide after slide in many of these, so narrowing it down to one was a struggle. But let's look at high level. Diversity feels like unique experiences, identities, backgrounds, and abilities of staff are respected and valued. And the organization is encouraging a growth in that diversity. Equity looks or feels like organizations providing staff with the tools and resources that they need individually to engage fully and to take advantage of opportunities in the workplace. Inclusion looks like staff across varying identities are encouraged to contribute to the collective and they have a voice. And belonging is staff having that feeling of security and safety and support to feel like they can be their authentic selves without fear of being excluded or having to diminish who they are at work. I know that that's a lot of high-level concepts to push at you, but we are going to support you with additional TA opportunities. So we will have on March 7th a more in-depth discussion and information to share with you about, again, workplace diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging for youth worker well-being. And on March 12th, we will do the same thing with trauma-informed workplaces for youth worker well-being. These are just each an effort to support you in asking questions and thinking about what does this look like as I prepare to look for funding. Where do I identify those gaps? What needs do I have as an organization? And so we hope to support you a little bit through that. We can't guide your application, but we can give you some ideas of maybe high-level best practices or get you thinking about questions you might need to ask internally with your staff to start that process around identifying gaps and needs and challenges. In addition to those two events, we have open office hours. This is something that Evan Dentley, our other director of quality, and I host the first and third Friday. This is an open opportunity to connect with us generally around anything youth worker well-being, but as we lean into this process, this would be an open standing opportunity for you to ask questions around these grants. I will caveat that in saying we can and will support TA around logistics and application and questions, but we cannot help you craft your narrative or answer questions as it relates to more specifics of your proposal. You can always use our general email box, the YW Wellbeing at IYI.org. And our amazing coordinator, Michelle, will get that email and then disseminate that accordingly to the team member who can answer that question. On your left side there is a QR code you can scan to register for either of the two events. So that opportunity is there. You can also find those events on, you guessed it, youthworkerwellbeing.org. All right. So that feels like that went really fast. I know that there may be some questions looming, so we will get to those. We do have on the call as well, evidently, as I mentioned, other director of quality, youth worker well-being. We have Cassie Wade, our vice president of youth worker well-being as well. And so if we need to, we will tap them for questions also. But feel free to drop any additional questions in the chat or the QA that you still have that weren't addressed yet. If you have no questions, before you go, please scan the QR code on the right and share feedback. We want to know that this gave you what you needed today and that you feel a little bit more equipped than when you started with us a little bit ago to apply. Other than that, I am open for questions. I'm not seeing a lot.
Becky, can we ask them verbally?
Absolutely.
So I am curious to know if we were to submit a proposal for let's say a 2-day conference on one or the other subject, are there any categories of funds that need to be left out? So if we were to, can we put travel in there? Can we put meals in there? Just wanted to kind of figure out how to structure the budget.
That is a good question. Yes, all of those would need to be listed. There's nothing per se that it would be excluded. You would, though, need to list all of those in your proposal narrative or in your proposal budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to answer the questions that were in the chat just in generally, I'm sorry, in the Q&A, or I'd be happy to if you can't. And then looks
Yep.
like there's another one coming in.
Good to see anyone.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a question around this still unanswered. If we have resources to offer folks that are not on the page yet, particularly around trainers, consultants, you can reach out to me. We are continuing to curate that list of grant resources. We welcome any suggestions for quality consultants, trainers, resources that should be included that might be of value for other agencies to see. There is a process for that. Just reach out. So two things: you can reach out to me directly, and I can support that. In addition, there's an interest form that could be completed that is found on the grants page. So a potential consultant or trainer could go there to fill out that interest form to start that process themselves. So that's one option, or reach out to me and I can talk with them. Could some of the funding be used to certify staff members for DEIB work? So I would say, to answer that specifically, if you're certifying staff members for DEIB or work like trauma-informed training or coaching, if we're focusing on organizational change, if that's going to be used to create a new culture, to shift culture, yes. If you're wanting to use that to just enhance skills of youth workers to do their jobs, that is where we're kind of differentiating that line, right? So this is not supporting youth workers through skill enhancement to do their daily jobs. This is supporting youth workers through creating a space that supports them.
I have a question on if we were to get the grant, what does the reporting schedule look like, and how is the narrative of progress report is going to look like?
That is a wonderful question. And in full transparency, we are still working out those exact details. Likely there might be potentially a midpoint. There will definitely be an end report and evaluation. There might be a midpoint piece as well, but the specific dates and exact timing and details around that are still being finalized.
Thank you.
Question came in: would team building activities that foster collaboration be considered? I would say, again, if the team building activity is something that helps staff members understand one another's culture or background, or again, creates safety and trust in that amongst staff, then I would say that could be a yes. I think it depends on the intentionality and the intent, the purpose of that team building activity. General team building, maybe team building that really centers building trust and safety and environment so that those team members can support each other and be authentic and be them full selves, then that feels a little bit different. See. Yep, and I just want to elevate this question because I saw it come in a couple different ways. How will the 75% of youth and family related services be measured? That can be calculated on a few things. That can be your budget percent, the split of your services, your staffing, could all be a way to evaluate that 75%.
Do a plug for telemedicine and virtual mental health services. So if your organization is currently signed up and enrolled and participating in telemedicine and virtual mental health services, you are likely, very likely eligible to receive grant funding as well.
Yes. Good plug. Let's see if there are any other. I am not seeing any other questions.
There is another question in the Q&A.
Oh, yep. Can this grant go towards employees learning a different language to communicate with other coworkers and families who speak a different language? I would say if the emphasis is on youth workers being able to communicate with one another, and it's supportive of that youth worker feeling more safe and being able to engage, yes. If that focus leans more on it's more for them to be able to serve the families, that might feel a little bit different. We would need to maybe just understand more in your narrative. So a couple more questions. Will the RFP tell us what we're able to use the funds for? So the RFP will walk through a lot of the information that we covered today. Your best bet is to focus on, right, look at the categories, look at the examples there, and look at the outcomes that we're trying to meet. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do with these funds. So if you look at the outcomes under each, the DEIB, and the outcomes under trauma-informed workplaces, that is what should guide these potential activities. Is this able to be reapplied for each year? So you can apply every year. You can apply one time per year. Will the RFP come to us in an email tomorrow? So we will give you a link to send you to the website so that you can have everything all in one spot. So by the time you wake up tomorrow and you go to check it out, the website is going to be updated with the application link, the RFP. The RFP will also have the application link in it. You'll see the registration links are there for these other support TA sessions as well. You'll see in the RFA the links to sign up to show up to the office hours. So everything you possibly need will be in that RFA that will go up online tomorrow. So go online and check. We will not be likely sending the follow-up email until early next week. So it will take us a minute to get this recording down and ready and prepared for you. So if you don't want to wait for that, you can check online tomorrow, Youth Worker Wellbeing under grant opportunities, and all the information will be housed there.
Becky, it looks like Deanna has a question or has their hand raised.
Yeah, Deanna, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I have a question. Okay. So like right now every year we do the, trauma informed care for our youth workers for working with kids, right? But what I found is that going through those trainings is often very hard on certain individuals who have been through these, traumatic experiences. People get triggered. So could we potentially hire someone, contract someone to come in and be, offer individual support and maybe group support so that our staff feels like they're in a safe place. There's somebody there that they can talk to. I'm not exactly, it's just an idea. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like.
Yeah, so let me answer this outside of this grant opportunity question first and foremost. So one, I would encourage anyone who is doing a training that might be triggering of vicarious trauma or potential past lived experiences to always consider having someone on site that can support that. That would be best practice for any type of opportunity like that coming in for your staff, right? Again, acknowledging that they may have lived experience, trauma, ACEs, etc., that might come into play. I would encourage anytime you bring a practitioner in that you ask if they have someone available that can be there to support your staff. So that would be my answer outside of that as a general best practice for that type of work. So, and again, the funding is looking to support the workplace efforts. Now, training staff or leadership in trauma-informed practices might be a baseline need in order to move the organization into being trauma-informed, but that is not the main intention of the funds. I hope that makes sense. I would also encourage, right, if you have access to mental health services related to your insurance, if you have our telemedicine and virtual mental health counseling available, that you might consider reminding staff of those opportunities, or even be ready to quickly connect someone with those opportunities as well. We also have, and regardless if you were eligible for telemedicine or virtual mental health counseling, we have peer support groups that happen 4 times a week. Which is an open opportunity that staff members could hop on, the next day potentially, or a couple days later if they need support processing some things that happened that came up for them during that training. So those would be my recommendations, both as it relates to the grant and then just general best practice.
Okay, thanks. We are enrolled in the Youth Worker Wellbeing Telemedicine project. I actually use these services myself, and we really appreciate that.
Good to hear. Any additional questions? Yes, and I know that we are focused on grants today, but Cassie did just drop in the link. If you are hearing us talk about this whole telemedicine and virtual mental health counseling thing, and you're wondering what that is and how do I also get that at no cost for my staff, Cassie just dropped the link in there. We are open again for enrollment into those services, so you can learn more about that from that link that was just shared. All right. I'm not seeing any new questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. Team, feel free to tell me if I'm missing any. Otherwise, I will shut off the recording and close out, but I will stay back for 5 or so minutes in case you have something more personal or specific that you need to ask. I will wait back for that. But I want to thank you for being here today and looking at supporting your youth worker staff through creating safer environments for them, increasing their well-being. Thank you for wanting to pour back into those who are serving our kids every day. We appreciate your interest and hope to see your application come through soon. And as always, stay in touch with us online, youthworkerwellbeing.org.
Hey, Becky, I do have one more quick question. One of the slides suggested that the reporting information was on our employees. Can you kind of give an idea of what information we would share about our employees in the reporting process?